Armies are supposed to be big, scary, and intense. These are the most embarrassing armies in the...
Do you know why your weapon's not shooting? Maybe because...
Wrong video, I'm sorry. Military fails in process. Let's get to the 10 most embarrassing armies in the world. Let's go.
Iceland. Known across the world as the land of fire and ice, Iceland is a country filled with contrasting landscapes. In one corner, you have some of the largest glaciers in the whole of the continent of...
I'm thinking tough-ass Vikings in Iceland. I don't know if this guy is right. These Wikipedia robot voice guys don't always get it right. Let's keep her moving.
But it is embarrassingly weak military-wise. In regards to its defense, it consists of the Icelandic Coast Guard, whose main duties involve patrolling waters to make sure no one's drowning, as well as keeping an eye on the airspace. Other units...
Maybe people don't want to invade it because they're scared, right? Now, these island nations, in particular Iceland, look where it sits on the globe. You know, everything's with drones and air power now. So you wonder if Iceland's got just a natural ally with, say, the Nordic countries. I don't know the answer to that one. But these embarrassing armies get pretty interesting. We've got some good ones here and some unexpected ones.
Include the National Commissioner's National Security and Special Forces units. Despite all of this, Iceland is actually the only NATO member which maintains no standing army. And with its Coast Guard only consisting of 3 ships and 4 aircraft, it's safe to say that Iceland's natural beauty is...
3 ships and 4 aircraft for a massive island. I guess they're just going to call in Big Brother and NATO as needed, right? Because you'd think they'd have a little bit more than that. Don't go offshore, get drunk with your buddies, and have a boating problem. Doesn't sound like they got Coast Guard.
Certainly more notable than its military might. China's military is full of pathetic sport.
Now China, who would guess China on this list? I saw that and I go, maybe this is some clickbait. Maybe China's not as strong as we think.
And soft soldiers. At least it is according to officials from within the Asian powerhouse. This can't be right. I thought China was an efficient machine capable of dominating the world. Well, they might have been if it wasn't for the one-child policy put into place in the 1980s. That's right, the Chinese government really shot themselves in the foot when they put this policy which restricts a family from having...
Now that's an interesting point, so I left this one in. One-child policy. Typically you wanted a boy, right? That was kind of at least the stuff we read here in the United States. So you wonder, they get to the only child phenomenon, that the kid's spoiled. Recently, checking the description, China came out with a big push for more masculinity. Less beta, simp type guys. They don't want to see the inclusion videos for recruiting. They want to see the kick-ass recruiting videos.
Than one child into place. The result was generations of overly pampered and spoiled children who grew up with no siblings, meaning all of their parents' and grandparents' attention was directed right at them. While this must have been nice for the kid, it meant the recruits for the Chinese liberation.
Now, do you think there's anything to that? The only child phenomenon. The kids didn't have big brothers to kick their ass, little brothers to take care of. Think there's anything to that? It could apply to the U.S. too. Most people maybe have 2 kids if they're lucky, raised by the nanny, right? iPads. Let me know in the comments, do you think that can contribute to a weaker military?
Army were awful, non-disciplined, overly enthusiastic soldiers. Panama. You probably know Panama more for its tax haven qualities, which have been mentioned in the news in recent years. Panama imposes no income, corporate capital gains, or estate taxes on offshore entities that only...
That's what I'm talking about, brother, no taxes. So, right off the bat, you're in a country like this. You're a multi-bazillionaire. Probably have your own private army, right? Who gives a shit what kind of army the government's got? You can go hire one from Salvador, anywhere in South America. Get executive outcomes to come, or whatever Blackwater is today. Does it really matter? Put that in the comments, let me know.
Engage in business outside of the jurisdiction. So it's little surprise that the ultra-wealthy of the world choose Panama to store their money, out of reach of the taxman. One of its least known qualities is the fact that Panama has completely gotten rid of their standing armies. That's right, despite being located in a very unstable part of the world, Panama joined its neighboring Costa Rica in being army-free.
I don't know if that's after Noriega. You remember that happened in the late 80s? You probably don't. Take a look at that. Panama historically has been a place, at least during the cocaine cowboys time frame, where a lot of coke money came in, was housed in banking because the regulatory environment was different. Interesting that they align with Costa Rica. Doesn't even matter for Panama. Let me know about Panama. What do you think it matters they have a strong or weak army? Or they're just going to be a passway from anybody from South America, anybody from North America coming through.
Considering the number of wealthy individuals who hide their money in Panama, I'm sure it is a well-protected place. Kitts Nevis. A country's military is the backbone of a nation's defense. Whilst this usually means they are a strong force not to be reckoned with, that isn't always the case. The nation of St. Kitts and Nevis in the Caribbean has an army of only 150 to 300 personnel tasked.
I think this is near Pedo Island, right? I think that might have been the British Virgin Islands, but in the same area where wealthy people congregate. Islands. I don't know even if they had a big army, would it matter? You know, when you get into should you have a weak army, a big army, a middle-sized army, we got these big dominant powers that'll come in. You could try hard, but it's like the older brother beating the shit out of the little brother. It's just going to happen.
With defending the country. I can't imagine they'd be much of a challenge for the military might of any country around the world, or even a couple of groups of Cub Scouts for that matter. The St. Kitts and Nevis Defense Force was re-established on the 1st of June 1997 and do provide plenty of benefits for its people. Small is certainly mighty in this case, as they have been cracking down on the nation's drug trade and
What the hell's that? I don't know if this B-roll's right, but that's a pretty disorganized bunch. But I guess if you're small and you're just there, a ceremonial military, why not?
activity and more of a policing role than you would imagine a military to carry out. Imagine stealing a chocolate bar from the shop and having a Marine chase you down the street and tackle you. Seychelles. The paradisal land of Seychelles off the east coast of Africa is a thing of beauty. With clear skies, jaw-dropping beaches, and tranquil waters, the last thing you would think of when you're relaxing and enjoying a drink here.
Here's what I'm thinking. Private Army. You got the hookup. You're like McAfee when he was down in South America, wherever he was, his own little private army. You got enough money, you just pay everybody off, right? So does the army matter? And all these beautiful exotic locations, doesn't make any difference. Probably not.
Is war. The number of active personnel of the Seychelles Army only stands at 650 personnel, although they have plenty of foreign help at hand. Seychelles began life as an uninhabited island before Europeans stumbled across this gem hidden at sea in the 16th century. In 1976, when the country proclaimed independence, the government wanted to ramp up their strength, so took drastic steps to encourage foreign investment, particularly for the
These type of countries will just be a pathway, like in the Pacific island hopping campaigns. You look back during World War II, whoever gets there first is going to control it. So whether they have a military, don't have a military, it's kind of irrelevant. I think most of these tiny places, the military is strictly ceremonial. Maybe they operate as a police force, law enforcement, and military.
Seychelles People's Defense Force.
À la richesse, l'excellence et bonne skill effective pour la guerre. This
foreign investment included gunboats donated by the UAE and China, as well as patrol vessels courtesy of India. Gambia. The Gambian National Army takes minimalism to a new extreme, mentioning that a new...
Sounds like the U.S. Marine Corps takes minimalism to a new extreme. Now think about it for a second. Standing armies. Last 2 decades we've been in the desert, not necessarily fighting a standing army. They call it decentralized. Minimalist for sure, right? They're taking improvised devices, making them into bombs, right? IEDs, picking up leftovers from us, picking up whatever they can. I almost wonder, does it matter in today's conflict? Do you need a strong standing army? Are we just going to have these conflicts which pop up, which go on and on? Are we going to have a big battle like the Redcoats fighting the colonists?
A batch of 620 recruits is joining a nation's army wouldn't be something to brag about usually, but when the army's only 2,500 people in size to begin with, it's quite the news to write about. This modest army might not be the greatest for waging war on rival nations, but it's pretty good at keeping costs low. Where else on the planet are you gonna find an army who shares a single jet and 2 aircrafts? Not many places outside of Gambia, that's for sure. Whilst the Gambians are dividing up a rota for who can use the plane, nations like the US have thousands of these aircraft at their disposal. Monaco.
I can only imagine that place. The amount of corruption in those small areas. US dumping money in. Let's get to Monaco. Here we go again with another billionaire's paradise. Do they even need a military? Probably not. You just pay everybody off. Almost like a Switzerland, right? Switzerland, think about a time it's been occupied in current history. Can't think of one.
Monaco is known as a billionaire's playground, and with a range of luxurious casinos and revered events such as the Monaco Yacht Show and the Monaco Grand Prix filling the calendar, I can see why. There are plenty of places for the richest among us to spend their humongous fortunes, to say the least. Despite this wealth, Monaco's military is anything but high-end. The Principality of Monaco is the world's second smallest sovereign state, with the Vatican City-State in Italy being the only place smaller. With such a small size comes an even smaller military capability.
Now I bet they got a massive budget. All the taxes they can collect from the billionaires at the casinos, real estate taxes. Again, do they need an army? I don't know about that one.
How small? 255 soldiers small. With an additional 35 civil employees, Monaco's military is the 3rd smallest in the entire world. Due to their size, they must rely on their neighboring France for assistance, sort of like a kid calling on his older brother to protect him from the bullies on the playground. Monaco's army consists of 82 people. That's only about 3 classrooms of students. To put it into perspective,
82 people. Might as well just kick it to the curb and say hell with it. What's the point? I guess the only point would be for like ceremonial purposes. When somebody flies in, they stand around at the airport looking official. Otherwise, what do they do?
Just how embarrassingly small that is, there are more members of the Monaco Military Orchestra than of the military itself. 85 musicians to be.
Come on, they got a bigger band than they got a military. Well, there you go, ceremonial, right? And do you always have to have a military if you're one of these countries? There's no way you can compete with a big power or even a regional power in your area. With unconventional warfare, as we've seen, do you need it? Do the countries have constraints, like the U.S., for example, have constraints on itself to keeping it from winning these battles like you see in history, like a World War II, for example? You go in and just very limited media, crush everything. Imagine, picture this. Can you imagine dropping a nuclear bomb on a sovereign country in the 21st century? Like Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Put that in the comments if you can imagine that. Just think how times have changed.
This unbelievably makes it the only country whose army is smaller than its military orchestra. This reliance of Monaco on its big brother France has its drawbacks, as seen in 1962 when the French president Charles de Gaulle threatened to cut off Monaco's electricity and water if income tax wasn't imposed on the Monaco residents by Prince.
Hey, little man, pay your taxes or we're going to cut off your power. You know, you're pretty much beholden to the French if that's the case, if they send all your power and water. So if any country sends the predominance of its goods or services, like in this case, power, water, probably, at least power, to a country, kind of have them by the balls. That sounds awfully familiar. Who else gets most of their stuff from another country? Huh.
III. Unsurprisingly, Monaco obliged. Excused to have never heard of Tuvalu, seeing as it is a tiny island country found in the middle of the South Pacific. It kinda looks like somewhere you would imagine a shipwreck to take place on. I mean, it's literally just a very small island with almost every inch covered in either sand or forest.
I'm gonna go with no one gives a shit about Tuvalu. Looks like a great place to go fishing or diving. Do they need an army? Probably not. Like form a volunteer reservist, kind of like a volunteer fire department, a volunteer military. They can just shuttle the troops in as they come on amphibious carriers because you're not doing shit. Hey, thanks for watching.